Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Judy Ribnick, Director of CBST's Aging Together, and I'm delighted to welcome you this evening and hope you'll really enjoy this presentation. The program is presented to you by CBST's Aging Together and is made possible in part by grants from UGA Federation of New York, the Leonard Litz Foundation, and the New York City Council, and supporters like all of us here. Thanks to everyone who's helped make Aging Together empower people aged 55 and over to foster diverse, meaningful relationships, access and share important resources, and think strategically about the future. Aging Together is for everyone, partnered, single, with or without kids, polyamorous, anything, local or not, because whatever our situation, we're all aging together. Dr. Pierre Darmon has been with us. He was there one time before talking about digital legacy, and I think Rosemary might be able to share that in the link in the chat as well. It was a great presentation, and if you want to, when we get to Dr. Darmon, if you want to say what that was about, but I think it's worth taking a view. Anyways, just a word about Dr. Darmon, and I'll call him now Pierre with his permission. And we'll put that in the chat as well. But I really appreciate hearing the kind of work someone's doing in the community to help all of us. And here's a little bit about Pierre Darmon. Dr. Pierre Darmon has been in the IT industry for over 30 years. He's held many management and non-management positions at IBM, where he worked in all 6 major business units of IBM, including research, and Watson Health developing various technologies for IBM customers. Dr. Darmon is president of TechEd Connect, formerly called the Westchester PC Users Group, and is a PC, Mac, computer support, and education consultant, serving small businesses, individuals. Is that only for Macs, Pierre, or is that Macs and PCs, right? Both?
Both, yes, everything.
Great. He regularly teaches workshops on many different technology topics and venues throughout Westchester and on Zoom, including public libraries, education and career centers, at his synagogue called Ami, and through the TechEd Connect programs as well. So we have an expert with us, helping us learn practical tips and tricks to having cybersecurity part of our digital health, shall we say. I'll note that Dr. Darmon is going to take questions periodically along the way. Please limit your notes in the chat so as not to take people's focus away from the presentation. And also, as I said earlier, we're recording this session, and Pierre has graciously agreed to share his slides with us. I'll be sending these out as soon as possible and putting them on the CBST Aging Together website. So welcome, Pierre Darmon. We look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you very much, Judy. It's great to be back here. I see so many of you came tonight, and I'm very pleased to see that. Let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, so just a little bit of history. I put this presentation together back in 2012 for the first time. And it's been evolving over the years. And every time I touch it, every time I look at it, I make a change, or more like 10 changes. 10 changes. So it's an evolving sort of thing because the technology is evolving. There are new things happening. It's never the same thing twice. All right, so let me go through the agenda. I'll be talking about routers, antivirus, backups, Windows updates, macOS updates, application updates, passwords, email safety, phone safety. Now, it may look like it's a lot of topics. It is, but don't worry, I will not dive very deep at all into each of them, or we'd be here till next week. So it will be very brief for each topic, but I want you to get an overview of what you need to be aware of to stay safe. When I give this kind of presentation with a live audience, not on Zoom, in an actual room, I do a quick survey, which I can't do as easily here because it's hard to see if people are raising their hands. But basically, I ask people, what their comfort level is with computer and technology in general. So I won't ask you that here, but I'm also interested in knowing what you are currently using in terms of operating systems. So hopefully, if you are on a Windows computer, you're not using anything that's in light gray, because those two versions of Windows are no longer supported, meaning, excuse me, meaning that you're no longer getting updates, security updates. So hopefully everybody is on Windows 10 22H2, not a prior version, or on Windows 11 23H2. And the dates on the right are the dates when Microsoft will stop supporting, or has stopped for the past versions, supporting those operating systems. If you want a Mac, again, hopefully you're not using any of those grayed out versions, because they are no longer supported by Apple, again, meaning you're not getting security updates. Hopefully you're using one of the three that are shown, I'm sorry, that are shown at the bottom here. Okay, again, I will not be asking every one of you which version you're using. Okay, and I also tend to like to ask what kind of device people are using, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or an Android phone or tablet, and again, which version of the operating system on their respective devices they are using. Hopefully, if you recognize the versions for your iPhone or Android, you are on the latest for iOS 15 and 16 and 17, because if you're not on the latest, you should be. Okay. All right, so routers. Hopefully you'll recognize at least one of those images, okay? Maybe more than one, but at least you'll recognize one of them as having them in your home. Don't worry if you don't recognize any of them. I can't obviously show all the routers available on the market, but that's what a router is. It's that kind of a box that sits between your home and the internet. If you're using any of the ones with a red X, you're in trouble, because they are no longer secure enough to be used as routers today. So hopefully you're not using any of the ones with a red X. If you are, we can always talk about it later. Okay, so what does a router do? What is it used for? I have two columns here. One is the non-technical description, and the other one is the technical description. If you're not a techie, just ignore the right column, and you'll understand what it does with just the left column. Okay, the first role of a router is to isolate you from the internet. The internet is a very dangerous place, and you don't want to be connected to the internet directly. That's why you use a router, okay? The next things that a router does is it acts as a network strip. Now, don't go looking for that expression in a dictionary or online, because I coined the term network strip, similar to what everybody's familiar with, which is a power strip. So think of it as a power strip, but for networking. So it allows you to connect multiple devices to the internet. It gives you Wi-Fi access. Everybody uses Wi-Fi nowadays. It's ubiquitous. Just to get a little more technical, it also acts as a traffic cop for some applications. I will not go into those details. Don't worry about it. And related to the traffic cop functionality, it also acts as an address updater. And there are many more things that a router does, but we're not going to dive into it at all. Okay. Antivirus, anti-spam, people tend to use one word for the other. There is a distinction. The distinction does not matter for tonight, but it's an absolute must-have. You cannot have a computing device. Notice that I didn't say computer, I said computing device. You cannot have a computing device without an antivirus, okay? And of course, it has to be up to date. So many times I ask clients of mine, I am a consultant, I ask clients of mine, or new client, okay, what antivirus are you using? And the answer, I'm using XYZ. But I stopped my subscription because I didn't feel like continuing to pay for it. The thing is, if you are not keeping your subscription up to date, it's completely useless. It's as if you didn't have an antivirus. So do not stop your subscription, okay? Unless you have a good reason to do so, or maybe you're switching to a different antivirus. There are plenty of free ones on the market. They're not all listed here, okay? These are just a few that you may have heard the names of. And of course, there are also plenty of not free or paid. And the ones that I put in light gray, I'm hoping you're not using, particularly Kaspersky, which was recently banned from any government computers by the US government within the past 2 weeks. I forget exactly when. The other three I'm not a big fan of, and that's why I don't recommend them. And I know you're going to ask me, but which one do you recommend? The one that I recommend is Malwarebytes, the paid version, which is also called Malwarebytes Premium. If you're using another one, it's probably fine. But if you're asking me what I recommend, that's the one that I recommend. Any questions so far? Everybody okay? Am I going too fast, too slow?
Somebody just asked whether you would be discussing password manager in this presentation.
Excellent question. I have a whole presentation on password managers. I will briefly address the topic, but as I said, very briefly. I have a whole presentation, so it could be for another evening. Okay, backups, which is one of my many favorite topics. What is a backup, first of all? Let's say you're planning a picnic for this coming weekend. Okay, but what if it rains? What's your plan B? What's your backup plan? Okay, that's what a backup is. Now, in the computer world, a backup is to protect your data in case something happens. It's not going to happen all the time, but it could happen and you want to be protected. So think of it as a backup as an insurance policy. Hopefully you're not going to have an accident, but you need insurance if you're driving a car, and you need your home insurance in case you get a flood or a fire or whatever. So why do we need to back up our computing devices? There are 5 key reasons, and the first one is user error. Yes, even yours truly can make a mistake, okay? And I'm sure you can too. And that's the very first reason why you want to back up your data, because when the computer prompts you, are you sure you want to overwrite this file? And you're not thinking and you click yes out of habit of clicking yes. And boom, you realize, oh no, I should not have done that. Okay, user error. Or you deleted the wrong file because you were not paying attention to what you were doing, or you didn't realize that it was a different name. Whatever it is, user error. The second reason for having a backup is to protect yourself from malware. And I'm saying malware in a very generic sense. It could be a virus, it could be hacking, it could be whatever disturbs your computer. The next item is hardware failure. And the reason I put hard disk failure in front of it, because after all, hard disk is a piece of hardware. It's the disk that, it's the piece of hardware that holds the data in your computer, is because the most common hardware failure is a hard disk failure. Okay. So that's the next reason to have a backup. Theft is unfortunately another reason. We're talking mostly about laptops or smartphones, not so much desktops, and your house gets burglarized. But it can happen. I remember in 2001 when my manager got her laptop stolen from a rental car. Okay. And she didn't have a backup. And I told her what backups were at the time. And she said, "Can you set this up for everybody in the department?" And I said, "Sure." Okay. And finally, natural disasters, fire, flood. It can happen. It's not the most likely event, but it definitely can happen. Okay. Backup must be automated or else. It sounds like an ominous threat. And yes, you can view it as such. The reason I'm saying it must be automated is that we're all humans. We forget, we get distracted, we postpone things, and then things don't happen, okay? But if it's automated, you don't have to think about it. Of course, a backup is as good as your knowledge to use it. If you don't know how to restore your data from that backup, then what good is to have a backup? What good is it? So you have to know how to use it. And finally, I have to say this more as a disclaimer than anything else. If you have never tested using your backup, then you don't have a backup because you don't know if what you think you put in place is going to work. Okay. Even if you think that you have the instructions to use it, maybe something else is missing and you're not realizing it because you never tested it. So this is more of a disclaimer than anything else. Okay. Windows updates.
Can I just pause for a
Sure.
second?
Yes.
There were a couple more questions that came in about the antivirus.
Yes.
One was, why not Norton or McAfee?
Okay, excellent question, and that's a perfectly valid question. I've experienced a lot of issues with Norton, mostly in performance of on the computer. Same thing with McAfee and WebRoot. McAfee is unfortunately bundled with 90+% of brand new PCs sold in the US today. And they push it so hard that it makes you wonder, why do they have to push it so hard? Is their product that bad that in order to sell it, they have to have it pre-installed on a new computer? Malwarebytes does not do that, okay? And yet they are near the top of the chart. So I don't like Norton. Symantec is the commercial version of it, the enterprise version, I should say. Kaspersky, I mentioned, has been banned by the US government, and McAfee and WebRoot causes lots of performance issues.
One more question.
Yes.
Someone said, I use a Chromebook, which has a built-in antivirus. Do I need another one?
A Chromebook is a different ball of wax because there is not much to be lost should the computer go belly up, be stolen, or whatever. So it's a different kind of a beast. No, you don't need anything else. You barely need an antivirus on a Chromebook for that matter.
And another question,
Yes.
now we're in backups. How do you back up your iPhone?
You use iTunes on your computer, on a PC, or you use now iTunes has been integrated into Finder on the Mac. I can't go into this now, maybe at the end of the session, because it would take too long to show it. Okay, so Windows updates. On Windows 10, as I said, no more for 7 or 8.1. You're not getting any updates anymore on 7 and 8. They come every second Tuesday of the month, also known as Patch Tuesday. Okay, and you should apply those updates. There are two kinds of updates: the important updates and the optional updates. The optional updates, I do recommend that you install them, but not if they are related to hardware. What do I mean by that? If the updates are related to a printer that you have, or a scanner, or a webcam, or something else, it's better that you go straight to the manufacturer's website, the manufacturer of that device, of that scanner, that driver, that printer, whatever. But otherwise, all the other optional updates, especially if they say Windows security or whatever, go ahead and install them, even if they're classified as optional. Windows 11, they come whenever Microsoft feels like it, but still usually on the second Tuesday. Okay. The advantage of Windows 11, and if your computer can be upgraded from 10 to 11, I highly recommend that you do so. The one advantage of Windows 11, out of many, is that some of the updates that were considered optional on Windows 10, Microsoft has made them mandatory or important. I forget the term they use on Windows 11. So there's less of a choice to be made here. They're going to get installed. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. Okay, as I said earlier, device drivers for a printer, a scanner, a webcam, go to the website of the manufacturer of that device. Okay. Switching to the Mac. Turn the light on here so my face is not too dark. When do they come? Well, it's a different game here. They come when Apple feels like it. Okay, and macOS updates, you should apply them ASAP. You usually get a notification on the upper right-hand corner of your screen that an update is available, and it should be installed. Application updates, for those applications that come from the Apple App Store, those should also be applied immediately. They usually get applied automatically, but not always. So it's good to monitor this. Upgrade, not update, and I'm making the distinction here, is when we're talking about the next major release, which usually is done in September. So we're currently running version 14 called Sonoma. So it came out in late September of 23. I never jump on the new release on on the new version that gets released in the fall. I always wait for the .1 release, 14.1. We are up to 14.5 now, but I'm just mentioning the general process. So this fall, and I forget the name, but version 15 come out, I will wait for 15.1 before jumping on the bandwagon. So I recommend you do the same thing. Application updates. So we've talked on the past two slides, we've talked about Windows update and macOS updates, but of course there are application updates. What are they? First of all, they are just as important as Windows Update or Mac OS updates. People tend to ignore those, and they should not, okay? Most of the time, those application updates are security updates, and that's why they are important. So let's see a few examples of what those applications could be. Your browser, whether you're using Firefox, Chrome, Edge is updated with Windows, so that's a different beast, and same thing for Safari on a Mac, but those are applications, and they get update as well. Firefox, you can set it to update automatically, same for Chrome, which I think is the default, but they need to be kept up to date. And if you're using any extensions or add-ons, the term varies depending on which browser, those are used to enhance the functionality of your browser, to add some functionality that may not be available in the plain Jane browser. Those need to be updated as well and kept up to date, especially if they are security add-ons. Adobe Reader is another very common one. Photoshop, Creative Cloud, if you are a photo editing maven. Zoom, which we are using, needs to be kept up to date. Quicken, if you're doing personal finance on your computer. Microsoft Office, or the equivalent from the Open Software Foundation, LibreOffice or OpenOffice. So those three are, if you want to do, document editing or spreadsheets or presentations and so on, those are examples of applications that need to be kept up to date. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, iTunes on Windows is also an application that needs to be kept up to date. So as you can see, and those are just a few examples out of many. As you can see, it's not just the operating systems that need to be kept up to date, but applications as well. And all of that is to protect yourself, because the vast majority of those updates are security updates to plug vulnerabilities, to fix some deficiencies. So it's basically to protect yourself. Any questions on updates?
I haven't seen any.
All right, let's keep moving. A few applications that I don't like to see on a computer, okay, that I uninstall when I set up a new computer for a client, or I go to a brand new client and I get to their computer and I see things that I don't like. Of course, I discuss it with them before explaining why I want to uninstall. Java, which should not be confused with JavaScript in spite of the name. Java should not be on your computer anymore. It used to be a technology that was widely used to enhance browsers. Not anymore. It's considered an infection vector. So you don't want to have it on your computer. And you may have it, especially if your computer is old, you may have it as a leftover that you don't realize is there. While Tangent tends to be installed on new computers, it's part of a series of games. It has caused some issues in the distant past, not so much recently, but again, I tend to find it on older computers. McAfee and McAfee Web Advisor, I mentioned that McAfee is bundled with 90% of new PCs sold in the US, and I always uninstall those. Especially, you don't want to have two, in general, you don't want to have two antivirus programs installed on your computer, unless you want a computer to, slow down to a crawl. WebRoot, as I mentioned, also I don't like, and Kaspersky because it's been banned by the US government. Security quiz. This is a fairly old but still interesting quiz that you can find to test your security awareness. If you go to that website, you'll be prompted to answer 14 questions after looking at screenshots. I will only show you 2 or 3 here to give you a flavor of what this is. So there are 14 questions. If you score 12 or better, you are relatively safe. And I emphasize relatively because the internet, as I said, is a dangerous place. And you're never completely safe on the internet. Okay. If you score 11 or lower, then you need serious help. Okay. So take that quiz. There's a more modern one at this web address, which is different and more recent, but it's interesting to take both if you can spend the time. There's only 8 questions on this one. They are completely different flavor from the one above, but you'll see. I'm not going to get into it. So I'm going to show you just a few of those screenshots just to get a feel for it. What do you think? Real or fake? So let's say if you can raise your physical hand or virtual hand, if you know how, it's at the bottom of your screen. For those of you who have their camera turned off, you can raise your virtual hand. What do you think? Raise your hand if you think this is a valid website. Okay, and now raise your hand if, okay, lower your hands. Okay, and and now raise your hand if you think this is a fake website. Okay, I got a few more hands raised for fake, and those who raise their hand for fake are absolutely right, and let me tell you why. There could be more reasons, but I'll give you at least 2. First of all, it talks about Yahoo, but the web address says google.com. That's odd, isn't it? And also, Yahoo's name only takes 1 exclamation point, not 2. Okay, so that's a fake. How about this one? Fake or real? Okay, everybody thinking it's real, raise your hand. There are 3 hands that are up right now, but it might be a leftover from the previous question. So lower your hand. And now raise your hand if you think this is real. Okay, I only see 2 hands going up. Okay, 3 actually. Okay, and now raise your hand, lower your hand for now, and now raise your hand if you think this is fake. Okay, well, I see a lot more hands going up for fake, and unfortunately, this is real. The reason it's real is it's got HTTPS, which means it's a secure website. S stands for secure. It's got the name of the website. Okay. It's a minimum requirement. It doesn't mean that the website could not be fake, but in this case, it is real. Okay. Those screenshots have changed completely. The HSBC website doesn't look like this, but it used to look like this. Okay, so at the time, this was perfectly valid, and it was a valid website. Okay, I'll skip the next few because just this one here. I'll point. No, you'll do the quiz on your own. I won't tell you. Okay, all right. Short URLs. Maybe you don't know what a short URL is, and maybe you don't know what a URL is. I should have said web address, which I think I used later. It's a short web address is used to reduce any unwieldy website address such as this. Don't try to click on this when you get the presentation, or don't try to copy and paste it. I modified it, so it's not the real thing, okay? It looks like it's the real thing, but it's not, so you'll never go anywhere with this one. But this is what I'm talking about by an unwieldy website address. And you could make it short by using some process, which I will not get into. And you may have seen short web addresses like this. The first one happens to be from Google. The next one is from a company called Bitly that is used to shorten long web addresses. The third one is Twitter, hence the T. I know now it's called X, but anyway. And TinyURL is another website, another company that does that kind of conversion from a long web address to a short one. Okay. So why is this dangerous? Well, on the long web address that you have at the top of the screen here, you know that you're going to go to Google, right? That's what it says. It's you go to google.com. Okay. But when you look at a short URL, which is very often what is given to you in a text or sometimes even in an email, but mostly in a text message on your smartphone, you have no idea where it's going to take you. So there are dangers if you're not sure who is sending it to you. So they are a lot easier to use, but you don't know where it's going. However, and you'll only know once you've clicked on it, and that might be too late if it was a dangerous website. So when you see a short web address like this, never click or tap on your phone on it until you really know where it's going to take you. So of course you're thinking about, okay, but how do I know where it's going to take me? Well, you can take that address, you can copy and paste it without clicking it, okay? You can copy and paste it and go to this web address, wheregoes.com. You paste that short URL, that short web address into that website, wheregoes.com, and at the bottom of the screen, it will show you where it's really going to go. I find this website extremely useful. I also use it to bypass those tracking things that they want to know whether you've clicked on that email that they sent you. And sometimes I don't want them to know that I clicked on it. So I use wheregoes.com. I put the address of the link they want me to click on, and then I actually click on the end result, which is no longer going to track my clicks. So it's got two useful purposes. So remember that website. You'll get this presentation, so don't worry, you don't have to write it down. Okay, passwords. As you can tell, I've covered a lot of topics and I don't go deep into each one of them. Yes, there are questions?
I just want to, before we get too far afield, there was a question way back about how to update Zoom.
Okay, excellent question. You can't do it while you're in a Zoom meeting, okay? Don't try unless you want to get disconnected. But at the bottom of your screen, if you are on a PC, where you see all those icons next to the date and time, or maybe just the date, there should be a Zoom icon. It might be among the hidden icons, which you can unhide by dragging it down. But anyway, if you right-click the Zoom icon and select check for update, it will do the update. On a Mac, you start the Zoom app. So on the PC and the Mac, you start the Zoom app. You don't have to be in a meeting. For that matter, you don't want to be in a meeting. You start the Zoom app, and on the PC, you right-click on that icon like I just explained. On the Mac, you go to the Zoom menu on the menu bar at the top of your screen, and one of the items in that Zoom menu is check for update.
Also, I just want to remind people that the links to the quizzes are in the chat, and they will also be available once this presentation is uploaded.
Okay, any other questions on past slides? You can always ask questions later at the end of the presentation too. So, How am I doing on time? I think I'm okay. All right, so passwords. Do not use dictionary words. What do I mean by that? A single word as a password that happens to be a word that you can find in the dictionary is not a password that is safe because it can be guessed too easily. Okay? Do not substitute 0 for O, 1 for I, 3 for E, and you'll recognize that those keys are just above one another. That's an old trick that dates back from the 1980s or 1990s. You can't use that kind of trick in 2024. What you can do, however, is use every single character that's available to you on your keyboard. Not just letters and numbers, but also special characters. And I've typed them all here, including the space. A space character is absolutely perfectly valid in a password. Okay? Most people think that they can't use a space in a password. Why not? Especially if you want a long password that would be more like a phrase than a password, then use spaces. You can add punctuation if you don't like to use a space. You can separate your words with a comma, a period, a semicolon, whatever. But there's nothing wrong with using a space in a password. Of course, make use of mixed case. That's usually a requirement out of several requirements on a particular website. A typical list of password requirements on a website would be at least one uppercase character, at least one number, at least one special character, and at a minimum, 8 characters long. Those are usually what you encounter, okay? But you may encounter more restrictive requirements, such as the @ sign or some other special characters are not allowed. That's dumb, in my honest opinion. They are restricting the number of characters you can use in a password because they were not able to implement their backend correctly, and that's not good. But anyway, so make use of mixed case in your passwords, and of course, change your password as often as possible. 6 months is a good period of time. More often is obviously better. Don't wait too long, okay? Don't use the same password for 2 things, particularly your email and your bank, okay? You don't want to do that ever. There's lots of other things you don't want to do, but you can use, and I'll mention that, I think it's on the next slide. You can use a password manager. Mozilla Firefox has a good password manager with a master password, just like any other password manager. I used to use the Mozilla Firefox password manager. I have switched to a platform independent password manager, meaning that I have my password available to me in Firefox, in Chrome, on Windows, on Mac OS, on my phone. It's all the same list of passwords. It's all synchronized. It all stays together. That's what password managers are about. But if you want to start with a simple password manager with just one browser, if you're not using a password manager yet, I highly recommend that you do. As I mentioned at the beginning, I have a whole separate presentation on password managers. The advantage of a password manager is that it can search you can search for a particular site, and then you can show what is the store password. Because let's say you're using the Firefox password manager, but you want to go to a website on your smartphone. You don't remember the password, so you can look it up in Firefox on your computer and then type that password on your smartphone or tablet. Anything on passwords? Everybody good?
No, but I did have a question about an updater, Ninite updater.
Yes,
Is that a good app?
yes, yes, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good program a good website that allows you to make sure that many of your programs, many of the applications or apps, I use different terms at different times, but it's all the same thing, it's an easy way to make sure that all the installed applications on your computer are at the latest level.
I think Dan Jacobson has a question also. Dan?
So my first question is regarding the updates for Windows 10. Do we
Yes.
have to do anything when they arrive, or are they automatically integrated? I'm not aware of having received any update notifications. And keeping track of them all is not easy to manage.
Unfortunately, the default behavior is not to show you that there are updates pending and that your computer needs restarting. Why is it not the default behavior? Well, that's a choice that Microsoft made. You can change that behavior. I change it on every computer I touch so that you get notified when an update is available or an update has been downloaded and partially installed, but your computer needs to be restarted to finish that installation. Some updates require a restart, some do not. Are they usually updated automatically? I'm going to say most of the time, but not all the time.
Okay, how do we do that? How do we set that to be the default?
If you click on the start button at the bottom left of your computer, where you get the 4 squares,
Yes, yes.
or the curly squares if you're on Windows 10.
Yeah.
Then you go to settings, and then I use a shortcut, so I forget what it says. Hold on one second. I'll tell you in a sec. Okay. This is not Windows 10. This is Windows 11, so it's going to confuse you. But there should be something that says either system updates or application and updates. I can't remember. And then you click on that and you go from there.
So I go into the control, whatever the control menu is.
Yes, it's called the start menu. Yes.
The start menu. Okay. You mentioned that we didn't need 2 different
antivirus. Yes.
Antivirus. I have both Malwarebytes and Windows Defender installed on my system. Should I delete one?
No. Let me explain why. Windows Defender is built into the operating system. It knows to deactivate itself when there is another antivirus program installed. It will still remain active for some functionality, but basically Malwarebytes or any other will take over. It's all done under the covers. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. And final question. You said that you recommended a password manager, but I didn't catch the name of the password manager you recommended.
The reason you didn't catch it is that I didn't mention any particular name.
Okay, okay.
But if you're asking, I mentioned the password manager built into Mozilla Firefox. However, if you're really looking for a platform-independent password manager, I recommend Bitwarden. B-I-T warden, like a prison warden.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so emails. Do not send any sensitive information by email. And sensitive could mean anything: bank account, social security number, date of birth, picture of a check. All of those things are considered sensitive information, okay? And the reason you do not send any of that information by email is that email is not a secure means of communication. unless it's encrypted, but we're not going to get there. Okay. But in general, for 99% of the user community, email is not secure. Okay. So do not send any sensitive information by email. Of course, do not ever send a password by email. That's even more sensitive. Okay. It may feels like obvious, but unfortunately, sometimes I have to state the obvious. And unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, I have seen it. I have seen clients of mine sending in the same email the username and password for a particular website. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Okay, so do not ever do that. If you have to share a password with somebody, do it over the phone. That's the most secure way of sharing a password. If you can't do that over the phone, use some tricks. Use half the password in a text message and the other one in a messaging app of your choice. But again, it's best to simply do it over the phone. When I started this presentation 12 years ago or so, I didn't have all of that information that you're seeing now. And definitely not anything about phone calls, because it wasn't an issue back then, or not so much of an issue. It is definitely a major issue today. Okay. So I'm asking a rhetorical question here. What do you do when your landline phone rings? Okay. Well, if you have caller ID, you can answer it, but I don't recommend answering it unless you see, unless you recognize who it is. And still, you should be cautious. Why? Because caller ID and phone numbers can be spoofed. Therefore, they cannot be trusted. A lot of scammers will spoof their caller ID by saying Medicare. So do not trust blindly your caller ID. So, okay, it's Aunt Lily calling. Okay, fine. You recognize the number, but still be cautious. Okay. Better yet, if you don't answer, just let it go to voicemail. If it's that important, they will leave a message. If it's a scammer, they will not. Okay. If you get an interrupted ring, do not call back. I know it's very tempting. Do not do it. Most interrupted ring are scammers trying to see if they can get you. Okay. So do not call back an interrupted ring. The same thing applies to cell phones. I started with landlines, but of course, it's as valid with cell phones. Everybody has caller ID on a cell phone. Basically, I do not pick up my cell phone. I do not pick up calls on my cell phone if it shows a phone number. If it shows a contact, that means I have that phone number in my contact list. That's a different story. And still, you never know. It's a little bit harder to spoof a name on a cell phone, but it's not impossible. So don't think you're safe just because you have a cell phone. Examples of scams, and those are, there are plenty more. You're going to say, oh yeah, but I got this and I got that. Yes, I know. Everybody's got their version of a scam. I'm just going to show you a few of the very common ones. Okay. Your social security number has been suspended. You owe the IRS money. We detected a problem with your computer, and it doesn't matter what brand of computer you have. Okay. Most scammers will tell you that they detected a problem with your Windows computer. And I remember when my father-in-law was alive, he got one of those phone calls, and he was absolutely not tech savvy, but he was at least tech savvy enough to know that he was using a Mac. So he hung up. your Windows license has expired. I haven't seen that one recently, but doesn't mean that it's not still out there. Your $499 order on Amazon has been received, okay? Or your antivirus subscription for whatever price, usually very high, will renew unless you call, okay? We have a low interest rate offer for your credit card, and on and on and on, okay? We've detected fraudulent activity on your card, or we've detected fraudulent activity on your bank account, and we want to verify. Can you please spell out your name and your address and account number? Okay, this is a very typical kind of thing, and on and on and on. The list goes on, unfortunately. Another example of a conversation. You pick up the phone and you hear, "Hello, Mrs. Jones. Can you hear me okay? I will be brief. Do you have a minute?" Do you see the pattern here? They're all trying to make you say yes. Do not fall for it. Okay? That's a trick. They're recording your voice and they'll use it to commit fraud on your behalf. So instead you say, "Who is this? What is this about?" Possibly, but do not say the word yes. It takes training, don't get me wrong. It takes training to not say yes. But I've trained myself over the past 5 years or more, or 10, to never say yes over the phone until I really know who it is. Of course, the best way to deal with this is to simply not answer the call and let it go to voicemail. Okay. Now, the real scoop on the few scams that I mentioned a few minutes ago, your social security number cannot be suspended, okay? Even if you owe the IRS money, they don't call you. They'll send you a letter, okay? The IRS never calls anybody. Your computer is fine, okay? If you get a phone call that your computer, they've detected that your computer is infected or whatever, your computer is fine 99.99% of the time. But if you're in doubt, seek professional help. One thing that I should add here is what's called browser hijacking. When you get, suddenly you're on a website and suddenly you get a full screen thing that says that we've detected a virus on your computer, and then there's a sound blaring that you need to call this number. Do not turn your computer off. Okay. That's called browser hijacking because it looks, emphasize looks, like you can't do anything, but you can. I didn't put this in the presentation, so this you may want to write down. If you ever encounter this, if you're on a PC, hold down the Alt key, and press the F4 key. F4 key being above the number 4 key, okay? You hold down the Alt key and you press F4. That will close your browser and you'll get rid of that nasty gram. If you're on a Mac, you hold down the Command key and then you press the Q key for quit. Command Q. So those two things, Alt F4 and Command Q, are to get rid of what's called browser hijacking. Of course, even though it blares a siren telling you not to turn off your computer, if you forget, was it whatever it is that Pierre said, I can't remember that the key combination that he said. As a last resort, turn off your computer. Wait 15 seconds, turn it back on. It's not the best thing for the computer, but in a panic, it's better than nothing. Okay, again, Microsoft will never call you if you have a license issue, and legitimate interest rates for a credit card will usually come by mail or email, but not by phone calls. Okay. However, credit card fraud can be real And it is entirely possible that your credit card company will call you if they detect fraud. But the best, so it's not impossible, but the best way to deal with this is, okay, I'll call you back, hang up, look up your card. On the back of your card is the number you need to call. Okay, if there is real fraud, they'll let you know. And if there isn't fraud, they'll just let you know too. Scammers have information about you from social media, from all kinds of stuff, from newsletters that you've signed up for, from anything, okay? We no longer can live a private life. I mean, this is in the past, okay? If you think you can be a private individual, you're fooling yourself. So scammers, data breaches is also another source of information about you, obviously. So scammers have information about you to trick you into thinking that what they say is true, even if it's not. Because how would they know about this? How would they know about that? It must be real. Well, no. So you got to be careful. You could ask the caller to provide your account number. They won't have it if it's not a legitimate call, and they'll usually hang up on you even before you hang up on them. So any unexpected call, or for that matter, any unexpected email or any unexpected text message should be treated with suspicion, okay? Better be safe than sorry. Again, I've said it many times, but it bears repeating. Your best defense is let it go to voicemail. Most scammers will not leave voicemail. Some will do, and it will be obvious, and you won't need to bother, okay? And usually when they do leave a voicemail, it's automated, and you could tell, and it's bogus. More tips here, and I think we're getting close to the end, so I'm on timing, I'm good. Anyone pressuring you or anything in an email, but mostly on the phone, anyone pressuring you to act quickly, hang up, hang up, hang up, hang up, okay? Any sort of pressure is a scam. I can't repeat that enough, because in a panic, you're going to do what they tell you to do. And that's exactly what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to put you into a panic mode. So when you pick up that phone, always be on your guard. I know it's hard to always do that, but remember, if they're pressuring you and you don't know what to do, hang up. That's your best defense. Anyone asking you for financial or personal information to verify something and you were not expecting this is likely a scam, okay? Never call an email, I'm sorry, never call a number or given in an email or a text. Always call the number that you know, the back of your card, on a printed bill or statement, okay? And if you're still not sure and you want to listen, but talk as little as possible. Because now with AI, artificial intelligence, they may be recording your voice and then use that to make you say whatever they want, okay? It's no longer just the yes word that they are recording. It's the inflection in your voice, and the technology exists today to make anybody say anything they want with a fairly short recording of their voice. It's scary stuff, but that's the world we live in. So if you feel uncomfortable for any reason, hang up. And finally, a little plug from the club that I'm the president of. We are TechEd Connect. We are a nonprofit. We were formerly known as the Westchester PC Users Group. We meet on Zoom. We're going to resume our monthly general meeting face-to-face. Actually, we are going to do that hybrid. So if you can't join us in person, you can still join us on Zoom. The general meetings are open to the public. We're going to make that available even if you join us on Zoom. But anyway, if you want to join the club as a member, you'll have access to all those things I'm showing here. And we've been in existence since 1981. And here's our website. The website will change fairly soon. It will be a new web address because of our new name. But for now, we're still using the old website. And if you need to get in touch with me, this is the information that you need. And I welcome any questions at this time.
I have, thank you so much. I have a couple of questions from previous parts of this presentation. One of them was, how do you find out if you have an antivirus on your Mac?
If you open Finder, which shows you all your files, and on the sidebar on the left, you search for applications. Click on applications, which will show you a special folder on your Mac where all the applications are installed. And there's no way to know if you're not aware which one is an antivirus, but that's where you're going to find all your applications. So that's where you need to look. If you're searching for Norton or Trend Micro or Bitdefender or Malwarebytes, it's going to be there.
Oh, thank you.
If you don't know if you have an antivirus installed on your Mac, most likely you do not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was another question which I'm not clear on exactly, but maybe you'll understand it. Otherwise, the person will have to raise their hand. The question was, what about text for security? And I'm not sure what that.
Yes, I need a little clarification on that question.
Okay. So in the meantime, Rebecca Rosenbaum raised her hand.
Oh, good. I apologize. I actually have horrible arthritis in my hands and have been unable to type, but that's a whole different computer problem having to do with the laptop really not being ergonomically right. But okay, here's my question. Like many of us, I was born in the previous century, and I think that people who are 20 years younger than me learned everything you're talking about when they were in 6th grade or something. And I have absolutely zero confidence that I can ever catch up. And I feel all of it like frightening and annoying and like another part of this century that doesn't belong to me. And I'm just asking you, how much do you think it's a total cop-out to just say, like, this is beyond, this is like, I'm sorry, I take my car into the gas station. I don't change my own oil. It's just a thing I have to hire done. I have to call somebody periodically to help me because I mess up all the time. And I got a lot of those emails that you talked about. I got them. My Social Security was suspended, which really fast leads me to say, if you get something that is suspicious, are you supposed to report it to somebody? Am I supposed to tell the Social Security Administration? Is somebody going to track it down? Because also I get 1,001 calls that are, my credit card does call me. It is a MasterCard. It is Barclays. I mean, I know their voices. It's like, they're asking for me. I'm just like, oh, hi, are you in the Philippines? I mean, they're calling from the Philippines or from, Vegas or from Wilmington, Delaware. I mean, it's like so weird. And then it just seems obvious to me that there's a correlation because I spend a lot of time on Facebook. So I feel like Facebook is like the FBI. I mean, they know what you're searching for. If I put in a search because I have
Rebecca,
I'll be really,
it's Judy. Just ask the question in one sentence. We're almost done with the presentation. What's your one question?
I was trying to save them all for the end, which he suggested. So I just want to finish by saying, if you think there was something suspicious, is there some way to report it? Somebody told me don't click on on spam, just click on delete. And then if you know, I don't understand, because it seems there's a correlation between what they can find out about me on Facebook and the frequency with which my credit card gets hacked. So I just feel like there's some kind of horrible network out there, and I'm scared all the time. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
I tried to save them for the end. I apologize.
Let me try. You ask multiple questions here. Let me try to summarize and get to it. If you get anything that you find suspicious, just delete it. Whether you should report it is almost irrelevant. The FBI and the FTC are getting inundated with reports of those things. Given your technical savviness, don't bother. Yes, there are ways to report those things, but don't bother. Other people are doing it. Again, the best defense is to not pick up the phone. And if you picked up the phone, hang up, okay? It's always fine to call back the real number that you know, and then you'll find out what the real situation is. Yes, scammers have access to your social media, particularly if you use Facebook, if you post, Instagram, X or Twitter, and so on. That's why I don't use social media. Okay, that's another reason not to use social media. I have a Facebook account. Do I use it? Only to access things that require you be logged into a Facebook account. I have turned off every possible setting in my Facebook account so that nothing gets shared. I have nothing in my Facebook account. It's just to be able to log in with Facebook. But in general, I do not use social media. So do you need, like you said, you go to a gas station to get your oil changed? Yes, you can use anybody like myself to help you with any computer problem or technology problems. Don't try to learn everything, because you won't be able to. There's just too much to learn out there. And that's probably true for many of you here tonight. By the way, you fit perfectly in the realm of 90% of my clients. Okay, 90% of my clients rely on me because they don't want to have to deal with it. So that's exactly what you could be doing.
Thank you. Judy, you want to clarify your question about the text for security?
Judy, you need to unmute yourself. Bottom left corner of your screen.
She's on the phone. Are you saying?
Oh, now
there
it's
she is.
unmuted. I was blocked from unmuting. I'm sorry, that was done and then it went out before it really, and it went through my brain. My question was, how safe is texting versus email?
Let me ask you a question in return. What kind of information are you trying to exchange?
I don't know. I just assumed that texting was safer than using emails. Just say I wanted to put I don't put a password or a whole password out on a text. I don't know.
In general, yes, texting is somewhat safer than email, because email can be looked over while in transit by some bad actors. Text is a little more protected. It's not 100% secure. Nothing is in this world, but it is more secure than an email, that's for sure. Now, if you really want to exchange messages more securely, then you would go to an app called WhatsApp.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay, so that is more secure than regular text messages.
Yeah, I want to thank you very much. I'm pretty sophisticated, but I've been nailed a couple of times and lost some money. a couple of times because I don't even know how they do it. But you end up doing what you swore you never would. So people should know it's very sophisticated. If something does happen, don't shoot yourself because you think you're stupid. Just know that it happens. I mean, you should be careful, but it does happen, even if you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Dan Jacobson, last question, I believe.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Browser hijacking. I was a victim a couple of months ago to browser hijacking, and I just want to share what happened to me because it might be helpful to people. I was surfing the internet and I clicked on a link, and suddenly my screen.
Oops,
Yep.
it froze. That's the suddenly indeed.
Oh gosh, I was just in a panic. And it said, don't turn off your computer. And I did turn off my computer, but then when I brought it back up, the screen came back up. I don't know what I finally did, but I managed to quarantine that site. I went back in my history and I saw what the address was of that, and I quarantined it to make sure I would never click on it again and it would disappear. But I was really panicked by it. So I just want to make sure I understand what you said. If this happens, you hold down the Alt key and press F4. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then what happens when you do that?
It will close your browser.
Aha. And it will quarantine the malicious.
No, it will simply close your browser. That's all.
So then my act of quarantine was a good act for me.
Well, it depends what you meant by quarantine, because quarantining a website is not exactly a precise term. So I'm not exactly sure what you meant by that. But
all I mean is I looked at my browser history and I saw the link that took me there, and I simply avoided it.
Okay, avoiding it. Okay, so probably a better description. Yes. Okay. Yes. One thing that I do recommend also, which I did not mention, is you can install an add-on or an extension in your browsers, whether it's Firefox, Chrome, Edge, or Safari. You can install a browser extension called Malwarebytes Browser Guard. It's from the same company as the antivirus that I mentioned earlier. And when it's installed and kept up to date, of course, it will prevent you from going to those rogue websites. It's not 100%, but it will stop the vast majority of bad websites. And it will stop you from going to those bad websites. So again, it's called Malwarebytes Browser Guard. It's free. Unlike Malwarebytes Premium, the Browser Guard is free. Install it in all your browsers, even if you're not regularly using them. If you're using Chrome on your PC, install it on Edge anyway. You never know.
I just want to say that Pierre is going to stay on from 9 till 9:15. We'll turn off the recording. So, or are we done with the questions for now, or?
There was another comment in the chat about the security of, say, Facebook groups. Are they any private groups? Are they any more secure than anything else on Facebook?
Facebook is notorious for collecting information from all of its users, even though they claim they're not. They are notorious for not deleting your data, even though you are deleting it. It's not scammers, it's Facebook doing this, okay? But there are also security issues that scammers are taking advantage of. So it's never a good idea to post too much information on social media, because even though you intend it for people that you like, the people that you don't like are also going to get it. Okay, and I include the scammers in those people that you don't like, obviously. It's always a bad idea to send pictures of your trip to Asia or wherever while you are on vacation, because the scammers understand that if you send in pictures from wherever, that means you're not home. Guess what they can do? They can get there. They have your address. They know how to build a profile on you based on multiple pieces of data here and there. So don't post pictures of your vacation until you're back home, not while you're on your trip. Not a good idea. That's just one piece of advice out of many, but you get the point. You're welcome.
A shout out to Pierre for raising our awareness, reminding us, nudging us a little bit how to take better precautions for ourselves in our digital cyber life. Thank you, really, really great presentation.